Welcome on in, everybody, to another episode of Dbacks Dispatch with your full team of hosts here, Brett, Brandon, and Gabe. Brandon's back from his nice little weekend visit in Vegas. Got out of the valley that wasn't cold to go to a place that's probably still not as cold, but glad to have him
It's
back. So we got the full,
colder. It's colder.
yeah, at least. But glad to have you back for the full trio because it wasn't the same without you. If you guys are tuning in the live show and all that, appreciate every single one of you guys. Again, if you have any questions like that, depending on how the timing of the show's going, we'll try to get it as we're going through. But if not, again, make sure you guys join the Discord as well. Should be links in the description and all that. Hop in there, trying to grow a community as we go along, and plus you guys can reach out to us more in there. Corbin actually messaged me on the side yesterday with some ideas in the show and all that. So again, perfect opportunity for that. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. It really does help out the algorithm and all that, because even Josh, his buddy, got one of our videos promoted in his thing. So you guys are doing great there. We really appreciate it. And also go check out the AZ Snake Pit for some articles. I know Jim just put up one today on the Diamondbacks 2024 Unsung Hero. So make sure to go create an account over there, leave some comments. A bunch of great writers over there, so make sure they're getting some love and all that. But again, we are here. It's not an emergency pod because it's the news is a little bit more than 24 hours old, but still, it's the best we could do because a lot of us were busy. You guys know it. You guys already heard the news, but Josh Naylor became an Arizona Diamondback. After losing out on Christian Walker and Paul Goldschmidt in less than a 24-hour span, Mike Hazen listened to all of us and all of our complaints and all of our, wants and needs, and he got a deal done, and he got the Diamondbacks their first baseman for the 2025 season as they traded for 2024 AL All-Star in Josh Naylor, left-handed slugging first baseman who's still only 27 years old. And in exchange, they had to send right-handed pitcher Slade Ciccone and a competitive balance round B pick to the Cleveland Guardians. So just looking at a little bit of what Josh Naylor did over the last few years. 2023, it's kind of funny because 2023 was one of his better years. Obviously not home run wise, but stats overall. 2023 he had a 2.5 B WAR, 139 hits, 31 doubles, 17 home runs, 97 RBI with 52 runs, 33 walks, and only 68 strikeouts. Which was good for a slash of 308, 354, 489, an 842 OPS, and a 130 OPS plus. But in 2024, obviously, he was an all-star. The average took a big hit. His slash and all that was 243, 320, 456 for a 776 OPS and a 118 OPS plus. But in 2024, he did slug 31 homers and 108 RBI. So like we talked about it kind of on Friday's show, we do miss a little bit of slug with Walker. I know he was very close to his own 3,100 season. So we got our own first baseman. He is a lot younger, I believe, at least like 6 or 7 years. So it is nice. Definitely, no one's going to replace Christian Walker defensively, but, still at least as long as we answer the offensive part of it, speaking for myself, at least I think we're going to be okay with it. But over those 3 years, obviously from 2022 to 2024, when Josh Naylor, I would say, became more of a full-time player officially, he was kind of a platoon bench guy for a while there. His average over those 3 years is like the slash line, all that 267, 330, 465 for just under an 800 OPS at 795, a 123 OPS plus, and I think that's honestly pretty solid. A lot better than even I know like Paul Goldschmidt became a Yankee, so we were all sad, probably missed out on him. But I think this is probably one of the better options that were out there, and it really didn't cost too much. We'll get in on what we gave up in the second part of this. But my question to you fellas, and obviously all you guys in the chat, which again, appreciate every single one of you guys for stopping by. I love seeing all the OGs and a lot of the, even if they're new names, love seeing every one of you in here. But what are your initial thoughts and reactions on this deal, and how would you rate your excitement of it on a scale of 1 to 10? Gabe, I'll start with you.
Well, Corbin Barrow says that he thinks I love this move. I don't, honestly. Here's the thing. I do like Naylor. I like him a lot. But my issue, I guess, is just that I feel like there's better options out there, like Yandy Diaz. And I think maybe that's what my problem is. Just, I guess maybe my expectations were too high. I think this team should have paid Walker what he wanted, and then we would worry about it later, because my issue with Naylor is mostly that it's only 1 year. We're going to be doing the same thing next year because there's no way they're going to be able to retain him. Like, they didn't want to retain Walker. Why would they want to retain him? Like, we won't know until all the details come out, but we don't know why Walker didn't choose to stay here. We don't know if maybe it was the years that didn't offer him, or they just didn't offer him in general. So At least Naylor, a very good player. He had a down year last year. I've been looking him up a little bit more, and didn't seem like he had any too big of a
Down year.
It's average wise.
Yes.
It is a bit of an issue, especially when we talk about strikeouts. Like we want to cut down on the strikeouts, and he's a slightly higher strikeout guy. But I will point out the on base percentage is very, very good. 320 is very good, especially for that average. So he does walk a lot. He does find ways to get on base. I wish there's a little bit more power. But overall, I think it's a very good pickup. We kind of replaced Walker with Walker, just a lot less, a lot less defense on this side. Again, it sucks. It's just 1 year. But I was curious about that average. I was like, oh, it seems kind of low for a guy like him. Like, is it the wind tunnel in Cleveland that gave him issues or something? But no, he's a really weird player where he actually hits very well in Cleveland, but hits worse everywhere else. So the home, he batted 269, 347, 505 for 852, and away 218, 292, and 407. That's really, really bad. Um, that that's like way below replacement level. So I would hope that's not what he would, hit in at Chase or something like that. Like Chase is a little bit more friendly. But then I looked up like, okay, but what about versus different teams? When he played against Arizona, it's obviously very small sample size, but he batted 091 against the Diamondbacks. When they played in LA, 091 against LA. Against San Diego, 0. He took an O for that series. San Francisco, he batted 231. And then against Colorado was the only time he did decent, which is 308. So
Yes.
there's some, maybe we should be a little cautiously optimistic about him. There's some holes there that I'm seeing early on. Maybe the D-backs just saw more in him than I'm seeing right now. I mean, it's only been like an hour, a day, and a few hours or so since they got him. So we haven't been able to really look super, super deeply into him. Maybe there is something there that we just didn't know about. Maybe some sort of injury that he was nursing, but he's all right now. So I feel like cautiously optimistic. This team needs to make more moves. I think this team would have been great with a mixture of Goldie and Walker. Right now, we at least got a first baseman. He can hit righties very well, lefties. I doubt they would platoon him, but we need to go out and get another batter or two.
Yeah, maybe they still keep the Pavin first base option alive. I know at least my initial reaction, I was like, sweet, thank God we don't have to deal with, because like I said on Fridays, Gabe put out a tweet. It's like, oh, it's 6:40 p.m. on a Friday night at Chase Field. Pavin Smith is your starting first baseman. Thankfully, we don't have to deal with that. You'd probably just be coming off the bench, but you do bring up some great points, Gabe, with maybe some negatives with the deal that we might have overlooked and all that. But I think me personally, it's still one of those. The fact that he's 27, yes, they might not be able to retain him. So we'll kind of get into a little bit later on. Maybe the possibilities of them extending him or even keeping him again next year. But at least the fact that I don't think he's going to have the same market as Walker. So maybe the D-backs try to strike up a quote unquote team friendly deal, give him a little bit of money now. Maybe like a 3-4 year deal, because the fact that he's 27 it is pretty nice that he's a little bit young. Maybe the D-backs can kind of get him work on some of his strikeout problems that he had. Maybe get him back to some of what we saw in 2023, where he had that like 308 average. Obviously we still like slugging, we still like home runs, but the D-backs in 2023 made it all the way to the World Series without hitting a bunch of home runs. Last year they missed the playoffs by hitting some of the most home runs in baseball. So I kind of take a little bit of give and take with that. But Brandon, kind of same question to you. What were your initial thoughts and reactions on the deal, and how would you rate your excitement, on a scale of like 1 to 10?
So on my last episode of the podcast, on Thursday, we did the whole mock trades that we got from, I think, D-backs Insider. And then one of those mock trades was Josh Naylor, and I was hesitant on that move based on who they mocked in the trade. Like Lucas Sims and Alec Thomas, I'm like, no way. What we got in this, I'm completely okay with it. He will be a full-time first baseman. His at-bats the last 3 seasons, 449, 452, 563. That is not a part-time player. That is basically playing 5-6 times a week. So he's going to be starting there every single game unless rest or injury. So I think we're going to be okay there. I don't think they make this trade if they don't plan on offering him some sort of extension, because it doesn't make sense. It's like, okay, we're going to put a Band-Aid on our first base position unless there's someone that they're eyeing that they know is going to be a free agent next year that they want more. But the emotions of this fan base from, what was that, Friday afternoon to Saturday morning to when this dropped, like, it was like, okay, first we lost Walker, son of a bitch. Then Goldie signed with the Yankees for a deal that we know this team could have offered. So that's even more frustrating. So I was like, and I was really glad when I saw that he made this move. I'm like, good. You are addressing first base. You are not allowing this hold to linger, because they needed to address this. Like, they really needed to address this. I like what Gabe said when it was a down year, because technically it was. If you go based on B-WAR, it was one less B-WAR. He had a higher average in 23, but he had a lot more homers in 24. My only concern is his 0 outs above average on defense. We are so spoiled over the last 8 years between Walker and Goldie at first base. Like, we are used to, like, any play being hit over in that direction is going to be made. So, sorry, Josh. Oh my gosh, our producer extraordinaire there, Josh. But I think that they made this deal because they either have an idea for next year as to a more long-term solution, or because he's only 27, Goldie was 37, Walker was 34. They thought maybe they offer him a 3 or 4 year deal instead of offering that 3-4 year deal to Walker due to age, because Walker has been declining lately for the last couple of years. It is what it is. But I am I'm okay with this because of what we get. We literally gave up nothing. Like, Cleveland was like, take him. And I love how as soon as they knew what Walker was doing, they didn't sit on it, which we kind of discussed. They were probably waiting to see what Walker's decision was to really start their offseason. So, Naylor, I'm really hoping, like Josh here put in the comments, hoping we can hit some 450-foot humidor homers in Chase Field. I don't know if y'all have looked at some of his homers when he was with Cleveland. They were jock shots, y'all. Like, they were
He's
just
also a psychopath. I love the energy he brings.
Like, it fits with Walker too, because Walker was a psychopath. So, yeah, like 30 years you could say it was a down year because his average really, really dropped from the year prior. Now it was 100 more at bats. So, but his OPS is something that to work on. So yeah, so that was good. So yeah, I know we have a question here that I think Gabe was going to answer when it comes to Rickety here. Gabe, can you just really simply explain what WHIP is?
So Rickety, he said he doesn't quite understand what WHIP is. All it is literally what WHIP stands for, which is walks, hits, and innings pitched. So however many innings a pitcher pitches in the game, however many guys he lets on because of a walk or because of a hit. So if it's a guy that consistently allows one hit in each start that he gives, that's all it is. He has a 1 WHIP. And it just goes on from there. It just depends on how many innings they pitch. It's like same with average or anything else. The more you pitch, the bigger of a sample size that you get. So if a guy has a 1.2 WHIP, that means he's okay, but that means he's allowing on average 1.2 batters on every single game or every single inning that he's pitching per game. So usually you want that to be a lot lower. Some of the best guys have 1.10, sometimes even less than that. So if you want to look for a reliever, the main thing you want to look for is not so much the average as it is WHIP, because that tells you a better idea of what they're allowing. But What I wanted to talk about is a few of Brandon's points. If you look at his Naylor's baseball savant page, his baseball his
It's
baseball
yeah,
his
it's
expect
fine.
his expected batting average is actually 257. So about 15 points higher. That's usually not what you see. Usually expected batting average is a lot lower. So if his was a 257 and he batted 242, that means that he was getting very unlucky. I don't know when he was getting lucky, whether it's the defense or it's just maybe some of those wonky fields in the American League Central. Maybe some of those contributed to him making outs when he shouldn't have. But that means, if he's batting 257, he's probably squaring up a lot more balls. He just got unlucky. I mean, we've seen it happen before with Goldie, even with Walker in 2021. He was batting like barely 200. You would see he was just hitting balls so freaking hard, be hitting them at 110 right off the bat, but straight to defenders. And, eventually that evens out. And with him, maybe a lot of it came early on. Like if you look at his by month average, it was under 200 for a few of those months. So it seemed like he was finally starting to get more lucky. Balls are finding the ground. So maybe here I'm assuming this probably would be like, if I had to guess, his batting average for next season would be around 255. I don't think he's going to be as bad as he was last year. He's probably going to hit a few more home runs here. So I do think, you know, to Corbin Barrow's point, I do think it's a good signing. I just think we have to be a little bit cautious about
It's
what
better
we're
than
expecting
Pavin.
out of him. Yeah, better than Pavin, slightly better than Walker. I'm just hoping he doesn't have as many cold stretches as Walker has. I mean, he is older, and one of the reasons why guys like Walker tend to struggle early on to season is because they call it cheating, but they have to cheat a little bit every time, is when the season starts, because their bat speed just isn't there the way it is for younger guys. So they want to catch up to the fastballs, especially nowadays where everyone throws 100. They move all the way back into the batter's box and they start to swing earlier. So that's why some of these guys struggle, because they can hit fastballs because that's what they've been training for. But as soon as they start throwing them sliders and curveballs, they can no longer hit them because they're so far back and the balls are just moving way too much for them to hit them. So then they have a lull throughout, the middle part of the season. They adjust, and then they usually even out through August and September. And want to bring up Slade. Slade, I think I know a lot of fans have issues with Slade here. My main issue with Slade has always been he is who he's shown to be. He is a one-inning guy, a one-inning reliever, and this team should have kept him as a one-inning reliever. Problem is that that's not what they wanted from him. They wanted him to either be a starter or a long reliever. That's not who he is. He's a one-and-done type of guy. He's a one-pump chump, and I think he would have excelled in that position. That's not what the team wants from him. Cleveland could probably do something with him, and I think it's going to be beneficial for him. So if next year he's dominating and being amazing, I don't want people to be like, "Oh, Hazen got fleeced or we got screwed." And like, the D-backs, that's not who he was going to be on the Diamondbacks. Unfortunately, that's who he's going to be in a different role in a different place. That's just what happens. I think it's good for Slade overall in his career to be moved, especially to Cleveland, because they have a much better pitching staff overall. And you brought up, like, if they're saving money for next year, Vlad Jr. is a free agent after next year. So start putting those pennies in the bank. And in terms of defense, I know you mentioned his negative WAR. Josh Bell came here with also negative WAR, not very good defender. He made a lot of great plays. So I think Dave McKay had a lot to do with that. Hopefully, and this is what I was talking about.
Isn't Dave McKay outfield though? I think infield was Paris Chica.
I thought it was Dave McKay, but either way, someone there obviously knows how to work with the first baseman, because they turned Paul Goldschmidt and Christian Walker into Gold Glovers when they weren't known for their defense at all. So hopefully they're able to, help him become a better defender. Maybe not Gold Glove worthy, but a much better defender. And I do trust this coaching staff to be able to do that and provide that to him. So yeah, I don't think he's going to be in the negatives this year. I would hope not, because some of those throws early on from Gino and Cattell and even Perdomo, they were a little wild. So we need a guy who can catch things left and right out there.
Yeah, so you kind of put it right up on a tee for me, so I appreciate you, Gabe. But let's kind of be the next part is obviously there's a lot of stuff to be excited for with bringing in Josh Naylor. But obviously, like I said, kind of in the opening, is the D-backs did have to give up not as much as we thought. Like Brandon brought up earlier with the mock trade of probably having to send a guy like Alec Thomas and Landon Sims and all that. Didn't really again feel like we really surrendered too much because he did have some promising signs and flashes of success here in just over 100 pitches or 100 innings pitched across 2023 and 2024. But he really couldn't be consistent and find his rhythm. Where he ended his time as a Diamondback with a 6.06 ERA and an ERA plus of 70. 2023 was a solid in like 23 innings, but this year he really, like we all saw, whether it was tipping pitches or just genuinely like having issues with location. Like even like Fuzzy put out a tweet where he doesn't walk guys. And he's got a nice fastball, and that was sometimes one of the downsides is he doesn't walk guys because he just lives like in the middle of the zone a little bit too much. Leave some stuff over the heart of the plate that guys would just end up feasting on. And it was definitely a little unfortunate. Maybe there's a few games that, especially looking back on it with the D-backs only missing by one game, maybe the fact that he went in and gave up a few runs, it could have cost them coming back in the game, could have cost them the lead in it. So it is unfortunate, obviously, that he couldn't work out here. But even like Zed Phillips says, it sucks just because it's gonna miss him because he's got a great name. Trust me, I like the name. Why do you think that me and my wife settled on that for being our son's name? Because it's just not for the pitcher, obviously, but just because it's a really cool name. But you obviously gave some of your thoughts on it, Gabe, and I'll pass it to you as well. But I wanted to bring into subject 2 of see you in space, Slade boy. Do you think that the Guardians and their pitching lab can actually fix Slade's issues? I know you brought up their pitching and how they've kind of fixed some pitchers and all that and gotten some good out of them. Or do you think this is just going to go down as another common Mike Hazen fleece? Like, I know a lot of people online, Guardians fans especially, are like, all baseball fans are going to be emotional, have emotional reactions. But I think a lot of Guardian fans are already immediately saying, wow, like the D-backs just fleeced us. Like, are you kidding me? And it's definitely one of those where I'm kind of on that same boat, like looking up what they gave. They got a competitive or they got a pick for Walker leaving to the Astros, and they basically took that pick and were like, hey, Guardians, take him with Slade. He's got 5 years of control left, basically. Like, here you go, do what you want with him. And I personally think that it's going to be a, looking back on it, I think this is going to be a win. Maybe we don't fully fleece them, but I think this is just going to go as a full win in the D-backs and Hazen's book. But I know you already talked about it a little bit, Gabe, but kind of the question to you is, do you think that the Guardians can fix him? Or again, do you think it's going to be one of those just common Hazen dubs?
I do think they can fix him. Like I said, I think the Diamondbacks had something here with them. I just don't think that he was the right fit for this organization. And that's not to, I guess, blame anybody or to have any issues with anybody. I don't think this is black and white. I know as fans we can be very black and white with everything. This is one of those things where I don't think it's a fleece for anybody. Even if he turns out to be an all-star, I don't think he would have been an all-star here because, again, they had a need for a guy like Slade. Slade just didn't fit that mold, and you can't do anything about it. You can't put a square peg into a round hole. Like he just wasn't what this organization needed. But Cleveland, this probably is a guy that they can use and turn him into something that he would be. I guess what the D-backs were expecting him to be, at least pitching wise. But I feel like Cleveland is probably going to use him as a one inning guy. Probably just maybe work on his mechanics a little bit because he does have a lot in there. The main issue with him was always just he would come out, strike 3 guys out on 10 pitches, and then he'd come out and give up 5 runs instantly. It's just this incredible hot and cold nature that he had. But I don't think this is going to be any sort of real fleece for anybody. Maybe if Naylor goes completely off and he becomes an MVP candidate, maybe we can argue for that. I would hope that the DX at least give him a contract before the season starts so we don't have to lose him. But he is very young. He's very good. And also, Corbin, I think you asked really quick about the RBIs, right? Runner scoring position. Comparing our runners in scoring position. He had 172 at bats and he batted 796 with 11 home runs, 10 or 11 home runs. Walker had 138, so less at bats with runners in scoring position. He batted 811, but he had 14 home runs. But Naylor also had like 80 something RBI and Walker had 60. So similar enough players.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So, and really quick, I want to jump in because I know on the Twitter side of our chat, which again, appreciate everybody, again, if you're stopping by on YouTube, the live show on Twitter, or if you're listening to this after the fact on like maybe Monday while you're at work, we appreciate you. We also try to respond to any comments. So if you have anything you want to say or anything like, that you want to give your 2 cents on, put it down there and we'll respond to you. But You're the Problem was asking if we could explain ERA plus, and ERA plus is definitely one of those like newer, kind of stats that has really become popular for the advanced stat nerds in the last few years. At least going off of MLB.com's definition, ERA plus takes a player's ERA and normalizes it across the entire league. It accounts for external factors like ballparks and opponents. It then adjusts so a score of 100 is league average, kind of like how OPS plus. It's basically like the pitcher's version of OPS plus is like the easiest way I'd explain it. But then league average being 100 and 150 is 50% better than league average. So the example they have on here is like Mariano Rivera's 2.21 career ERA was 105% better than the MLB average during the time he pitched. Which again, it's taken for like some ballparks are a little bit different. Like Coors Field is way different of a ballpark than Chase Field, even though both are known for being kind of like run producing environments. Where even like Gabe said, Naylor had some better numbers in Cleveland. That ballpark is going to affect a pitcher's ERA plus and all that a little bit different than like Dodger Stadium or even like Yankee Stadium, but also does take into effect like fielders and all that. Like if it has a really poor defense and an outfielder doesn't make a play that probably I'd say 95% of the other league makes, it does kind of take that into effect and kind of like reflect a little bit better. So when we say like ERA plus, if you're under 100, it's again below league average. If it's over 100, then you're at least on the right track of things.
Yeah, and one of the ways they take account of those numbers is looking at the launch angle and the speed off the bat and all that. So if there's a ball that's launched at a 90-degree angle and at 110 miles an hour, how much on average does that go out of the ballpark? And they take that into account too.
And then Brandon, kind of same. Are you on the same path as, or in the same boat as Gabe, where you don't think this is going to end up being like a fleece for either team? Do you think that like it could be like a win? It could be at least probably a win no matter what, because even if Slade does become an all-star, if we can get something good out of Naylor, or are you kind of on the same track with me where you feel like this could potentially, especially if we do extend Naylor and he does have a pretty successful, career here, do you think that it's going to go under another common Mike Hazen fleece job?
I think it depends on what Cleveland plans on doing with Slade. Are they going to try and fix him as a pitcher, or are they going to see him as just a high leverage 1-inning pitcher? So I feel like if you like, because a lot of people will just go and look at his stats like, oh my Lord, his ERA was 6. Freaking Dbacks fleeced the Guardians. But I'm like, you have to watch him. Like, yes, he did have some outings where he looked like it, like he looked like he couldn't get an out. But then he'd have, like Gabe said, he'd have 1 inning where he looked untouchable. So for me, Slade was always the guy that I kind of wanted them to dangle out there for teams for like to use in trades, because he's young enough where any sort of issues he has, a team can probably fix them because he's going to have so much control. And that's what they have here with Slade. And there was a report that came out yesterday that Cleveland and Arizona have been talking this trade since basically the start of the offseason. But as soon as the Walker signing went through, because on that one, I believe we get a pick A, which is usually after the first round, depending on what basically our salary ends up at. So, yeah, they basically traded the pick that we got from Walker signing with Houston. So, for me, I do want to see him do well because, first of all, how could you not love the name Slade Cecconi? It's such a baseball name. Like, I absolutely love it. As soon as Walker signed, I'm like, great. All right, so now we can find out what we're doing long-term for first base, because It's not Pavin. Pavin is not a long-term, like, we know, we can put him there every day. Ethan, I will hate Pavin to this day.
What do you also hater of Nickelback? You hate good music, so you hate good players? I'm just kidding. No, I don't think any of us wanted to see Pavin play. I just like Ethan's comment there, so I bring that up.
It's not that I don't want to see him play. I don't want to see him
It's
play.
Not the majority of the playing time.
Like, he should not. Like, we saw in 2022. Go look at his 2022 numbers. They're not good. So
yeah, they're really not. Like, for anybody that not even the 2000, I think it was 2021. He got a good chunk of playing time too, and I think he was our best player that season.
But like,
obviously,
everyone,
he wasn't an all-star. Like,
everyone kept bringing up, he was hot for 2 weeks in August. I'm like, y'all, that is a small window that he was hot. Like, it's nothing against Pavin. It's just we've all seen what he is. He's a decent major league player. He's a role player. He can do well for you playing in short spurts, but if he plays every day for like a month straight, I don't know if that's going to win you any more baseball games.
Yeah, honestly, it definitely would have been the recipe for success, and it wouldn't have been, I feel like, ideal for even whether for the memes or whatnot. If you're a true believer in Pavin, I just don't think it would have been the best solution. And I'm at least, I do like Pavin against righties in pinch hit situations and certain things because he does have a good eye. He does have a good, bat to ball. Like, he can put the bat in the ball pretty well. It's just one of those where, is it going to be a ground out? Is it going to be an out? Or is he actually going to be, coming through for a hit? And like Rickety Bridge said in the comments here, happy holidays to everyone, by the way. Don't forget to hit the like button too. It really does, again, help out the algorithm and all that, and does, especially with us being one of the only like, I guess, Dbacks shows in the off season at this point, it does, help us out a bunch. So again, do what he said, hit the like button, it really helps out. But I think you guys both make a great point. Is it just kind of depends on what the Guardians want to do with him. If they do want to fix him, make him just an elite reliever. I know, like, they got obviously Emmanuel Clase, so it's not like he's going to be a closer, but he could be a pretty solid guy in their bullpen. I know they had a pretty solid one last year. So maybe if they do want to just limit him to the innings, and just try to use him as like a 1, maybe 2 inning guy at max, I definitely think that it's not a bad option from them. But I'm glad that we don't have to sit here worrying about how to fix that out, and try to get the best out of him. But Gabe, you said you had one more kind of thing you wanted to bring up on Slade before we move on to our next topic here on today's show.
So the thing when we're talking about Slade about being a 1 inning guy and what this team wanted from him, I didn't want him to be a starter or a long reliever, but we have the stats to back up the fact that he was great. It wasn't just the eye test. I just looked up the stats, and his first inning of work, he had a 0.69 ERA, and opponents batted 116. The second inning of work, 3.21 and a 208 average. So his ERA jumped almost 3 runs the second inning of work. So I don't know what Cleveland's going to do with him, if they're going to leave him as a 1 inning guy, but I do think he should be at least, a 1 inning guy, because he pumps 99 and then suddenly he drops like 93. So I don't know what his issue is, if it's a mental thing, physical thing, whatever it is. I do think Cleveland's just going to use him as a 1 and done type of guy. And, like I said, he just wasn't going to get that sort of work here with the D-backs. So I'm glad they were able to get him. I do think he's going to be able to be very good for them, and I hope he is good for them. Because I know people always talk about fleece jobs. So I'm like, I never want it to be that way. If I could choose, it would work out for both sides. Like, it's just beneficial for everybody.
Within 24 hours. You really can't.
Yeah, you're never going to. You might not even be able to tell halfway through the season. I remember last year when we talked about Gino and Rojas. Rojas was batting like 330, and everyone's like, oh, fleece job. But it's like, well, at least on Gino side, we're all frustrated with him. But we all knew, at least when it came to Rojas, we're like, calm down. He's going to bat 150 for the rest of the year. And
even the Gabby for Dalton Varsho, or Gabby and Lourdes for Dalton Varsho trade, like that one, like I know we in 2023 we were saying thanks Blue Jays fleece, and even that one's going to take a few more years before we can really decide who won or who fleece. I mean, again, it's with Gabby being hurt, if he has an injury bug and injury problem kind of consisting, it's definitely one of those where maybe we didn't fleece them. I still think we fully won it, but you guys do make a good point. Is you won't know in the first 24 hours, the first 48 hours, the first few weeks. It's going to take some time to actually like know and truly understand, and like pick a winner in this fight, or in this trade scenario at least. But the I thought there was a. It looks like Gabe is actually rooting for the Yankees to win the World Series now that Paul Goldschmidt is a New York Yankee, which one is a disgusting sentence to say. I hate that I can even say
Yeah,
that.
I saw like those mock up with the jerseys. He looks so bad. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? This is not Paul Goldschmidt. Like, can we talk about that really quick? We never talked about it, or do
No,
we
we
have
didn't.
something?
So we can if you want to say. I think I had it in the one of the other parts of the thing, but if we want, we can just fully segue into that. I know it's definitely probably a little bit sad, like Brandon mentioned earlier, in that the 24 hours after we lost Walker, and then that morning on Saturday when he went to the Yankees, it just seemed like we were making some memes. It seemed like the D-backs were just not going to spend. They were going to be screwed for this Christmas, get nobody anything that we wanted, but they what a difference 3 hours makes. But yeah, so for you guys that didn't see and all that, we did obviously in our Friday emergency podcast, me and Gabe mentioned it, that like maybe we thought that a reunion of Paul Goldschmidt just kind of made the most sense, even if like they didn't and went after Carlos Santana. Like we really like the idea of bringing Goldie back, but that idea was dashed and was burned and buried because he did sign a 1-year $12.5 million deal, and he is now going to play in the Bronx, hitting the same lineup as Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, Cody Bellinger, a lineup that would have done fucking numbers in 2019, but some of them are a little bit past their prime and all that, but but it is one of those where it was still sad. Obviously, he's fan favorite to all of us, as myself included. But like Gabe like already mentioned, what were some of your thoughts, initial reactions, and maybe like feelings? What kind of mental state were you in as a D-backs fan once that news kind of broke?
Yeah, I mean, I was already frustrated with the Walker thing, mostly because of the money and everything. Where I was like, as soon as the season ended, we talked about the contracts. We're like, the starting point for Walker is probably 3 years, 60 million. That's the bare minimum for Walker, and it's probably going to go up from there. And then it comes out that that's the literal contract that they gave him, and it's like the D-backs couldn't give him that. Like, what happened? Like, did he just not want to come here? Or was it that maybe they want to structure the contract to where he would get 25 and then 10 for the last year because he's going to be older? Like, what happened? I'm going to be very curious once Hazen and Kendrick they start doing press conferences later on. I'm going to be very curious to see what the hell happened. Like, was there even an offer on the table for him? Same with Goldie. We also, when we talked about options, we mentioned Goldie. Like, bare minimum 1 year, 12 million. This team could do it. And then with all the contracts to Soto and all these other guys, we're like, ooh, he might go for 20. And then it comes out, yeah, Yankees for 12. And you're like, we couldn't do that either? Like, what happened? Like, what's going on? Like, are they like the Toronto Blue Jays where people just don't want to take their money or something? Like, what is it? Like, did Kendrick do irreparable damage calling out Montgomery? Like, is that what it is? Or is it just that teams wanted like someone like Goldie? This might be his last year. Does he want to go with a team that was in the World Series last year, or do you want to go to a team that didn't even make the playoffs last year? Because that's what happened here. Is there still sour grapes with him and the organization because of what they did? Oh man, it's just very, very strange. It's very frustrated, and I was like just angry where I was just like, what's going on with the front office? Like, not just calling out Hazen, but Kendrick, all of them, everybody in the front office, everybody makes those decisions. Like, what were we doing? Like, what was the plan here? Were any of them ever in contention for this team, or did they always have their eye on Naylor? And it's just one of those things where I felt like it would be better to spend the money so we're secure. They know what they're doing next. Being able to bring Goldie back, and I know people said like, oh well, he's old, his numbers, blah blah blah. It's like he still batted very well against left-handed pitchers. He batted well over 300 in the last month once he was able to adjust. Like, he still has a lot to give, I think, and he thinks can be very good for New York. And I wish we would have had him here. Like, with the way the time that he's been gone, we always talked about him being next to Randy Johnson in Cooperstown, but that might not be the case. He might be going in wearing the Cardinals hat.
Which I will actually be very sad boy hours if that happens, because I'm still firmly believe that he did more here as a Diamondback than he did as a St. Louis Cardinal. Yes, he won an MVP, but just looking at the numbers, I still think he had a better career and better years here. Again, he would have won MVPs if he didn't run into Bryce Harper being an actual fucking god in one of those seasons. But you do make obviously a good point with the, obviously like Goldie, we all wanted him. And Brandon was not here on Friday when we were doing this main discussion. So I at least wanted to, pass it to him. And the question I'll get to you, Gabe, after obviously Brandon gives his thoughts, but the question for this part that I was kind of cooking up and going to ask you guys was, does at least the trade, obviously now that we have gone through that Friday and Saturday morning feeling of, oh, cool, we're not going to do anything. We couldn't even match all these, these contracts that seemed very, especially reasonable and not too out of our price range. Does the trade for this now 27-year-old slugging psycho in the box make the loss of Walker and even Goldie going to the Evil Empire sting a bit less? So Brandon, obviously, what are some of your thoughts on Walker and all that? And then obviously the question of does the Naylor trade make all of this hurt a little bit less to us?
So yeah, Walker, that was very disappointing because I'm like, I know this team could offer that deal, the exact same deal, 3 years, $60 million. Because for me, all off season, I'm like, he's probably asking for 100 over 4, so which is about $25 million a year. So I was very, and it was weird. It was the day before, there was a report that came out that basically the entire first baseman market was not looking good because they were all asking for a lot more. And then Walker signs, and it's a domino effect. It was an absolutely insane domino effect. Was I sad Walker was gone? Absolutely. I loved watching Walker play, but I had also accepted, I was like, there's a very little chance he's coming back, mainly due to his age. He's 34. Offering a player of his age a multi-year deal is a very big risk. Again, we don't know what happened there. We don't know, did they offer him a 1-year deal, 2-year deal, 3-year deal? Which one did they offer? I also was never big on the bring back Goldie. It's a thing with Arizona sport fans. They can't let go of a prior player. If we're looking for a long,
Goldie's not just a prior player, though. If we're being honest, Goldie was.
If you want to fix your long-term solution at first base, bringing back Walker is just a Band-Aid. Again, it looks kind of stupid me now saying that because we got Naylor and that's on a 1-year deal, but there's a chance with Naylor that turns into a 3-4 year extension. I truly feel like that's what we could see, a extension with Naylor before the start of the season. Because then that it does address that long-term need at first base until they have someone maybe single or double A that is ready to go. So, but no, I definitely was. I was like, oh crap, we missed on Walker. All right, pivot to Goldie. The Evil Empire gets Goldie. This just freaking I'm like, and then I was like, we are really gonna have a platoon of Pavin Smith and Josh Bell at first base. And I was like, okay, here we come, 70 wins. 70, 72 wins. I was all ready for it. So I took a big sigh when I saw the Naylor trade. Even bigger sigh when I saw we literally didn't have to give up that much.
Yeah, we really didn't have to, especially I know we talked about the mock trades, and it seemed like we would have to give up, maybe one of our everyday players like an Alec or Jake and all that. But it is nice to know that the Guardians are, or at least the A's owner, John Fisher, and some of these other teams aren't the only cheap owner. And the Guardians are definitely going to try to flip people that are about to be free agents for at least something, kind of like, I know it's been a hot topic, kind of like what a lot of people are thinking about the D-backs potentially needing to do with Zach Gallen, where we know he's probably going to walk. We know we're probably not going to be able to afford him. At least get something. That seemed like what the Guardians definitely did. And instead of going for maybe a player that they wouldn't be able to fit in their field, they went with, the pitcher that at least has 5 years of control that they could try to work something out of. But I do kind of agree with you. I think I'm on the same page. As it does make it hurt a little bit less, even looking back on it now, maybe it was just a little bit of nostalgia glasses that kept me from wanting Goldie back. but it is.
now.
I do feel a little bit more comfortable, like you said, with if we can give him an extension, it does solve our first base problem a little bit. Because and obviously I'll let Gabe kind of jump in here, but even the follow-up I was going to have for you guys was, do you think that they're even going to try to sign him to extension, or would like we just literally be back in the same exact boat in 2025 in October, November, December?
So I just want to say, like, when Brandon is talking about the bringing back old players and stuff like that, Goldie at least still has some value. I do think they should have used him as a supplementary player alongside, hopefully, like, a Jock Peterson, where they both face off, their opposite guys, because Goldie is great against lefties, Peterson is great against righties, so could have had him as a platoon, give some time off to Walker. So that was my number one option in general, was get Goldie as a part-time DH, and sometimes getting
maybe
Walker
he didn't want to
off his
maybe
feet. And I think that's what I was going to
the
bring
reason
up.
why.
That I think maybe the D-backs, if they offered him a contract, if that was the numbers, everything being equal, there could be a chance that the D-backs were telling him, you're going to be a role player. You're not going to bat. You're not going to be an everyday first baseman. You're going to be a backup DH. And I've heard an interview before with Goldie. He doesn't like being a DH, and he says mostly because if he has a bad day on the field, he can't come back and do a great play in the infield where he feels better about himself. He can feel more focused. Because if you look at his numbers as DH on the D-backs, he was bad. He was not a good DH. He hasn't been a good DH ever. He just said it's a totally different mindset that you have to have as a DH. And someone like Jock fits that perfectly. So I do think they need to still go get Jock Peterson, because of right now we don't have a DH at all. We have Pavin Smith and no one else. So we have to worry about that. But in terms of feeling the insecurity about the first base position, I feel a lot better now. I feel more secure, but I do think this team has a lot more to go, and they really have to lock up Naylor from sometime now until March, because so the season starts, guys don't sign during the season, and if he hits the ground running, he starts hitting bombs left and right. This team, if they couldn't afford Walker, they're not going to be able to afford Naylor.
Yes, I'd rather have us, be in front of the ball instead of having to be in the same position where, oh, cool. Yes, it'd be nice if Josh Naylor balls out in 2025, like Gabe said earlier, puts up MVP numbers, but I'd rather have to make sure that he's paid first before that, because then that just increases, the chances that we wouldn't be able to afford him. Kind of like, we paid Corbin early. I know it was a very different situation, but we gave him his early extension. And then in 2023, we were like, oh my God, he is already outperforming that contract. Like, if he can play like this is an absolute steal for the Diamondbacks. So I'm hoping that we can kind of have a similar, situation with Naylor. Because again, the nice thing is with him being young, and I would say moldable. I think the D-backs would be able to, kind of hopefully continue the trend of, we've had 14 years of great first baseman and great first base play. While, Brandon and, yourself, Gabe, you've already mentioned it and brought it up already. He's not going to be that good on defense, or at least he's not going to be the same on defense that we've seen, like Gold Glove from Goldie, the Gold Gloves from Christian Walker, basically 3 years in a row. But there is a chance that the D-backs coaching and fielding lab can make their magic work, like they have, like even to Gabe's point with Josh Bell, where Josh Bell was making some plays that I don't necessarily think if he ends up having the same fielding like success that he had here that he does with like the Marlins, or even like back when he was a Pirate back in those days.
Padre too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he was a Padre, huh?
He was in the Juan Soto trade.
Oh, that's right. That was the national, and then he was switched with, or he sent with Juan Soto, huh?
He also played for Cleveland too.
Man, he's been everywhere. He's gonna be a name that whenever, if you guys are baseball ref, what is it? Not ref guess. Why do I always skip, or why do I always miss out on and forget the name of the game, the grid game? Immaculate Grid. Yes, thank you. Yeah. If you guys are Immaculate Grid enjoyers, he's definitely one of the names. And now at least Goldie has a third team, so it's one of the cool things about seeing all these players bounce back and forth is it really gives you chances to get those rarity scores down as low as possible.
I don't care about the rarity score. For me, it's can I fill all 9?
Yeah, so there's some times where I'm like, oh man, like I could
I
not
had
get
some
that filled.
streaks on that last year. Like I got like 14 days in a row where I had all 9. I was pretty proud of myself.
It's definitely fun and there's also more games on there. So again, if you guys haven't already checked them out,
Yep.
Baseball Reference, bunch of games on there. But we're gonna transition into some of the the chat comments. Again, we know we got a bunch of comments from you guys in here. Keep them coming too. If you guys have more, like we've have a few starred that we'll get to. So if you guys have any more like that, shoot them in the chat. We'll star them. We'll make sure to at least discuss them here on the show tonight. But the first one we had here that was earlier in the chat was Tass on YouTube asking, what do you guys think should be our new DH? I know Gabe kind of already mentioned it. He thinks we should go back and get Jock. I'm in that same boat. I still think that getting a guy like Jock would be probably our best move. But I'm curious to hear what your gentlemen's thoughts are on Tass's question.
Yeah, I think for me, it probably would be Jock, just because I don't think there's another option. I think there's other than doing a platoon, there isn't a righty out there that can hit both guys very well, both arms as well. So we probably do need a platoon. Pete Alonso is still out there, so if Pete Alonso is willing to be a full-time DH, I will take it.
I mean, there's a chance, but with how much he was going to want to be paid, if we're not going to pay Walker to be our first baseman, I don't think we're going to pay Alonso. But hey, I'll take back some of my shit talk from him stealing Walker's all-star spot this year if he does decide to take a little bit of a pay cut to be here. But Brandon, same question to you from Taz is, what do you think the D-backs should do for, or who do you think should be their new DH?
Well, as Gambo said from Arizona Sports a couple of weeks ago, he was like, they're not re-signing Walker and Chalk. We didn't re-sign Walker. I really hope Mike Hazen, as soon as he finished that Josh Naylor trade, was get on the phone with Jock's agent. It's like, how do we get this done? Because I think that should be their next priority is solidifying Jock so that we don't lose as much power because we already lost Walker. So, and we're probably not going to bring back Randall Grichuk. The only way I see them bringing back Randall Grichuk is if they can't re-sign Jock. So if they don't re-sign Jock, I could see them going after Randall Grichuk because the thing with Grichuk is he can also play outfield. Jock has played outfield.
I don't know if we want that to happen, though.
I would rather have Pavin. I would rather have Pavin playing outfield over Jock. So, no, for me, like, if their next move isn't Jock, it's got to be a big move. Like, I do not want to see a Ildemardo Vargas type signing before we address one of these other positions like DH. Or transition to our next question.
Yeah, say, there you go.
Ethan, trade Monty. I freaking wish.
Yeah, say, I do like what Ethan's mind is at with that, but one of the names that Task kind of brings up here is Jake McCarthy being a DH, and I don't necessarily hate it. I know he hits lefties pretty well, but to me, it's like I want the DH to have a little bit more thump in the bat, and I don't think Jake provides enough of that. Especially he had a pretty rough end of the season, so I don't know if I'm fully comfortable with him being a DH. I don't know, your fellows' thoughts with that, but
also,
I'm still in the same boat.
Way too athletic to be playing DH.
Yeah. We definitely need his speed in the outfield. Maybe not center field because we saw how ugly he could be out there. He's not Alec, but he's definitely worth at least his salt to be out there. Putting his defensive skills on the line. But Brandon already kind of teased it up here.
I just want to say real quick about Jake is just I don't like him as a DH either, just because he has no power. And I think as a DH position, you need power. You need a guy who's going to hit a whole bunch of home runs. He might strike out a lot, but he's going to hit a whole bunch of home runs. And like you're talking about him scuffling later on. Yeah, he batted 234. He had a 500 OPS in September, which is really, really bad. And you can't get a 500 on OPS from your DH position.
No, you can't. And it would honestly, again, I would be surprised. Maybe they'd try to work something in there, but I don't think Jake would be the DH in that scenario. But, who knows? Mike Hazen has done crazier things. But Brandon already teed it up here. The next question that we had was from Ethan Draper. Ethan was asking, what do you think will be the next move? Monty traded, And I know this one personally, I wouldn't hate, because I know Jack Summers was replying to us on Twitter and put out there that like they would have to trade Monty if they really want to do anything else with the money that they have available to try to like clear up some of that room. And yes, even in that mock trade episode that we talked about 2 shows ago, where they were going to potentially give the Rangers, like in that specific one, give him 10 million, pay at least half of his salary almost, and it's still 10 million lost, but it's not the full 20 something, so you have a little bit more room to work with. But curious what your gentlemen's thoughts would be. Would you obviously do the same thing with Monty, or is there like a different move that you have in mind?
I know they want to get off of that Montgomery trade. I don't think they ever will, just because if Kendrick had never come out and said what he said, I think they probably could have gotten it done. But now that they know that they don't want him there for sure, they can't dangle him for anything or anyone. Every team is probably going to be asking for a prospect and like 20 million, per year for him. And so they can only pay him, or like per year for the rest, just send a prospect and 20 million. And they're not going to do that. So I don't think they're going to move on from him. And I don't think they should. I know I'm going against the grain a little bit. I don't think they should. I think he is going to be better next year, having a full off season, I guess, with the pitching staff. And I think he's going to be better. He should hopefully come back in shape, because again, look at how he looked at the end of the last season with the Rangers, and look how he looked coming back this season. Totally different guy. I don't care what his weigh-ins say. He did not weigh what he said he did. So I do think, if he comes back into shape and it looks like how he did earlier on, I think he should be fine. I think this team is going to need him down the stretch, and I have trust in him.
Honestly, I'm kind of the same with you. I don't think he was the best, obviously, that we saw last year, and I don't think I think there's a lot of positive that can come out of just keeping him at least, but it's definitely going to be, I'm not too sure. So that's why I wouldn't be surprised. I know
is a
even
big one for me.
What, the possibility of him being a starter, or is he going to be moved like back into the bullpen? I feel like you're not paying a guy $25 million to be in your bullpen unless it's a guy like Tanner Scott.
Yeah, that we saw what he was as a starter last year, but we also saw what happens when you don't have an offseason of where you're going. You don't have a full spring. Like, I'm kind of willing to give him a chance at the start of the year, but for me, he's got to start hot. Like, he's got to be like, don't tax our bullpen. Like, that's the one. Like, I'm like, I do not want to see you at 80, 85 pitches through 3. I do not want to see that, because then you're barely going to make it through 5, and then our bullpen is taxed.
It's definitely there's a lot of bad that can come if we get the same Jordan Montgomery that we got in 2024, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed that if we can't get off the contract, that we do at least see close to what we saw in 2023, the reason why the Rangers traded for him. But the
thing is, you can never have enough pitching. We saw last year what happens when we had 2 pitchers and a stick of bubble gum, like, for most of that season, and so did the Dodgers. But the thing is, the Dodgers also had 10 other guys who could make starts for them, and we didn't. And that's why they won the World Series. They did it with 3 pitchers, and that's all they needed. The D-backs need every guy that they have available, and if Montgomery is a 4 ERA guy next year, I will take that, honestly, because that's technically better than Brandon Pfaadt and Ryan Nelson's ERA was last year. So if he's able to be that, because right now, I think we all keep forgetting about the fact that we still have Eduardo Rodriguez.
Yeah,
we have him for 3 more years. Like, he's still on this team. So we have Gallen, Kelly, Erod, Montgomery, and then either one of Pfaadt or Nelson, whoever makes it out of spring training. So like I said, I do think once spring training starts, we'll get a better idea of what Monty is. Does he have a certain velocity back? Because he's not old. He's like 30 years old. He's not like it's some 35-year-old guy or something out there. Like, he still has a lot of potential.
It's not the same as Mad Bum.
Yeah, it's not the same thing. I know people make that comparison, but Mad Bum had way more innings under his belt. Montgomery also had, when he went to the World Series, same as the D-backs. The D-backs had a lot of batters and pitchers struggle to come back into form, for the season, just because of the workload you get into the World Series. So he could have had that World Series hangover the same as the team, the rest of the team. It's not like Corbin Carroll was all that great. Gino struggled early on. Like the guys who made it to the World Series, a lot of them struggled early. They eventually found their groove. Could have just been the same thing for Montgomery. He just could never find a groove because he was signed so late.
Yeah, and I know we for our next question, I know we kind of already talked about it a little bit on this, so we'll be quick with this one. But Justin Huddleston is asking, why haven't we re-signed Jock Peterson or Josh Bell yet? I think obviously with the trade, most of it, I think we were just waiting on the Walker news to come through. So, like Brandon said, the Walker domino fell. It caused like a chain reaction. A bunch of other teams signed. I think that's the reason why we didn't bring back Josh Bell right away, because I don't know if we have necessarily a spot for him unless it's just as a DH. And then Jock, I think they're still probably waiting to hear back. I know I think he was having some interest from the Rangers, but curious to see what your guys' obviously, maybe opinions are on this one.
I think might have just that it's kind of just a wait and see what they decide. I would hope that the team is going to be competitive with their offers, but they've been very tight-lipped about everything else, so we won't really know until either one happens.
That's true. Hazen does not like to show his cards. Brennan, do you have any, maybe other like ideas of why maybe we haven't been as aggressive with?
By the way. I don't hate this.
Yeah, so Ryan Helsley, I don't know if the Cardinals are going to want to necessarily take on that kind of contract, because it seems like they're trying to shred contract with getting Arenado out of here. But that's actually a great segue into our next part. The next question we have here from Rickety Bridge. What roster holes do you think the D-backs need to fill before spring training? I personally think that they should try to focus on the back end of their bullpen. I know a guy like Tanner Scott's still out there. I know he's going to be a little bit expensive. It's going to be a hot commodity, so they're definitely going to have to open up the checkbook for him. But I wanted him last year before the trade deadline. I want him again. That's definitely the main hole I would want at least filled before spring training. But I'm curious if you guys had another one in mind.
Yeah, they need a high-end reliever, another infielder who can play multiple positions, because I am not trusting Aldemaro Vargas to be the utility man that Kevin Newman was, and they need to fill that DH spot.
Yeah. Brandon?
So, all right, let's just kind of quickly go over starting rush right now. So we know pitching is going to be Gallen, Kelly, Erod, probably Montgomery, and then Nelson or Fott. So I think starting pitching, we're maybe try and get someone you could keep in Reno as like a backup in case something happens. Bullpen, I definitely think we need another high leverage arm. I mean, Josh Rojas, if he doesn't have to play every day, maybe not such the worst idea. I would like one more high leverage arm, because I do feel comfortable 7th, 8th, and 9th with Puck and Jamar. Anyone else, I don't know how I feel. So that one there, and then DH. Are we gonna try the platoon again? If you don't re-sign Jock, I really think DH is gonna be Josh Bell and Pavin Smith. And I think we're okay on outfield. So going through all that, like Gabe said, need a super utility guy that can play second, short, and third. Another back end of the bullpen arm, maybe another middle relief too. Because I think that's still a little maybe could improve there. Not like a high leverage guy, but maybe middle to low relief might not be the worst idea.
Yes, it's never bad to have bullpen depth. I mean, pitching depth in general is always, like even Gabe said, that's the reason why the Dodgers went where they did in the World Series, is they had pitching depth. They had plenty of guys that would be able to step in. While it might not have been the most, productive pitching depth, and there are times where their offense definitely had to kind of get them out of holes, but they definitely had guys that were ready to step up. Unlike, even we saw some of the struggles where guys like Christian Mena, Slade Ciccone, and whatnot were given opportunities. They just couldn't find consistency. They couldn't actually stay with those opportunities. So it's definitely going to be one of those where I think even in the bullpen, like you said, it's never bad to have some more of those middle guys, because not every pitcher, not every starter is going to go those 5, 6, 7 innings. You're going to need a guy that's going to eat some some, I'd say, blow up start innings. You're going to need a guy that's going to eat some length every now and then for, fingers crossed, Kelly having, more cramping issues. So I think that's definitely an area, to be, addressed. And like Tass is asking,
I completely forgot about this. We might get him back. Dre.
Yeah, we should. They should be, because Lavello had an interview, I think, towards the end of the season, where he just straight up said, like, Dre told him, like, "Hey, put me in, coach. Like, I'm ready." But they obviously didn't feel he was ready for his rehab, so he's probably gonna be the number one guy who's ready to
That
go.
would fulfill, like, I think. Well, also with him, they need to decide what they're doing with Dre. Are they putting him as a starter? Is he going to be middle relief, long relief, or is he going to be high leverage? I wouldn't mind him 7, 8, 9 if we can't get Ryan Halsey. Have Puck, Martinez, Dre, like that trio. I don't hate that idea.
Forgetting about Ginkle.
Yeah, Ginkle too. Puts fire in my blood, baby.
Like middle relief, I feel decent because you're gonna have Ginkle, probably Bryce Jarvis, Mantiply, Seth Martinez. I'm not sure. Like that was one of the moves that they made that's kind of under the radar. Also, is Kyle Nelson going to be ready? And you got Ryan Tom. Like middle relief, I think we're good on, but I would definitely like another high leverage, like someone for the 7th, 8th, and 9th.
I think that's definitely on not even just our wish list, but from remembering what Mike Hazen said in that season ticket holder Q&A, that was still one of the things that he's eyeing in on. And I believe it was mentioned in Jack Summers' article he put out after the Josh Naylor trade went down. Hazen got a bunch of questions, like, areas that they're still looking at. So we'll try to, I think we retweeted on Twitter, but go check that out. There's a lot of, great stuff in there. I was reading that on the way to the Suns game. So it definitely sounds like, I know we made our jokes. Obviously, it's there are some times where it feels like they just wanted to stand pat and not do anything. It does seem like they were like they are still heavily engaged in a lot of the markets with pitching, DH guys, and all that. So I'm assuming now that we're closer to Christmas, we might not see as many moves right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if we do see some more moves at the start of the new year, and maybe get to do a few more emergency pods. So again, make sure you guys are hitting that notification bell. You can see whenever we do go live, and follow us on Twitter too, because we do obviously tweet out whenever we're going live on there. But back to some of the questions that we had here from everyone in chat. Next one was from Red Sox Nation. She wanted to know do we think Jose Herrera will remain the backup catcher for the season, or will we be blessed with ADC?
I think yes, because this organization wants ADC to be the catcher of the future behind Gabby, and he just doesn't have what it takes, at least defensively. His arm speed is low. His pop time is very slow. He just doesn't hold runners on. So the option for him would always, it's kind of just going to have to be maybe a transition to a first baseman or just a pure DH. And Mike Hazen just straight up said, no, that's not what we want for him. We want him to be a catcher, but it's just, starting to show more increasingly that that's not going to be a role for him. I do think he should be, at least probably a DH. He is still very young, and I think that's something we forget. He is very, very young. So he could just end up starting the season in Reno, although I would like him mostly for his bat. But
he's 25, so yeah. He's still really, really young, y'all.
I think if he has a solid spring, he'll make a good case for himself.
Yeah, for me, the main issue is going to be the defense, because we saw last year, as soon as Gabby went down, if ADC was there, everybody was running wild. You could have Daniel Vogelbach out there, and he's going to be stealing bags against ADC. Like
Danny Burgers, baby.
Danny Burgers. Like all these guys are going to be freaking.
The amount of running that teams did on us when Gabby wasn't back there was night and day. It was like, oh dear Lord, we need to. My only issue with Jose Herrera is he's almost an automatic out. He wasn't last year. Like
much better last year.
He did finally get his first career home run, so congrats there to Jose Herrera. Years prior, like he would barely bat 210. Like I'm like, I know he's a good defensive catcher, but you can't handicap yourself because you only get 27 outs. You can't handicap yourself to do 24. But I could see with ADC that they carry 3 catchers, and he's also a platoon DH.
It could be a cheap option if they can't afford to bring back like Jock Peterson at least.
Yeah, I mean, I would have trust in him. The only issue is that we don't know how the league would adjust to him and how he would adjust back. He just didn't play enough time. We've seen with Jock, he has the ability to adjust, so it would just depend on ADC how he's able to adjust, especially during spring training. See what he looks like. It's probably one of the positions that's going to be in the running, at least for the backup, because Herrera, at least you get the defense. Yeah, he is a stabilizing force out there. ADC. He just has a lot of power, and he's a very good hitter. So I think, as his career goes on, he's probably just going to be a pure DH. But it just depends on what the D-backs want and what they need. We also saw the pitching splits between them. Pitchers pitch better with Herrera than they did with ADC. So I honestly don't see a future with him being a catcher. I think he is just going to be a DH. It just depends on the team when they want to make that move.
I think it was just more of chemistry. Like, most of the pitchers were used to Jose Herrera. Like, he's been on this team for a couple of years, so a lot of those pitchers were used to it. I just think long term, the backup catcher situation is better with ADC over Jose Herrera.
I fully agree. And I think one of the nice things is if he gets more time, because I feel like last spring he did get a few at-bats, but it was kind of one of those where he was one of the early cuts. He wasn't getting like, some of the, I'd say the more consistent ABs, consistent playing time. So I would definitely be okay with him, maybe having to be behind Gabby, at least again in spring, try to pick up a few things. Maybe, see some things that Gabby does. Obviously, Gabby is an insane athlete behind, like, you're not going to just be able to pick up a few things and do the exact same things as Gabby is. But I think the caught stealing and, like you guys said, getting a little bit more familiar with some of the pitchers to where they feel a little more confident in the areas and locations. Maybe even he can get to know his pitchers more, where he's like, oh, cool, I would have called this pitch before. Now that I know Zach or Merrill or one of these other guys, maybe I don't call that pitch in that exact location. Maybe I call that pitch in a different sequence. Maybe I, even like Brandon brought up in the chat earlier, like maybe I try to focus a little more on pitch tunneling and exactly where I want to have these guys throw. So I think it's definitely going to be a benefit in spring training to not be one of the first cuts, in at least I hope that he's not one of the first cuts. So I think that that'll be very crucial for him to see if he can, kind of put himself above there to where Jose Herrera is a little bit more expendable than he was, obviously, middle of the season and all that. But who knows? Maybe they might just keep Jose anyway and send him back down to Reno. I don't know if he has options left, but we'll see. I do like the idea of ADC as a backup catcher, though, and I think that would be the ideal scenario in all of our minds. The next question that we had here, this is kind of a little fun one. Are the Dodgers the Death Star at this point? Is there one weakness that we can try to exploit to, maybe actually get it to blow up from the inside, or
injuries, because they develop their pitchers to throw way too hard?
Yeah, I think the D-backs could have a chance against the Dodgers. Maybe not for the division anymore, but I do think they could be able to compete with them because of the injuries, especially with those pitching staff. They have a lot more guys back there now, so they just have to hope that the Dodgers struggle a little bit, especially playing in the playoffs and everything. Hopefully they come out the gates a little sluggish, so then they can catch up to them at some point.
Yeah, so it's definitely be a tough task. The NL in general is becoming tougher. Especially we don't know where Roki Sasaki is going to be playing yet, whether it's the Dodgers, the Padres, or even a different team. So we'll kind of have to wait and see. But it's definitely going to be a tough task. But I'm confident in our boys to, I believe in one of the Discords we're in where someone was like, oh, I feel like they play better when they have like lesser expectations, where people don't expect as much of them, where they have like a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, like we saw kind of in 2023. So maybe they'll have that. Maybe everyone's going to be, trying to take down the top dog, and they're going to come out with a little bit of fire whenever they play them. But the next question that we had here was again from a man Tass in YouTube. Who is the better 5-man starting role, Monty or Nelson? So obviously, like Brandon brought up earlier, the rotation's probably pretty set with Gallon, Kelly, Erod. I would assume Fat has a solidified spot there. I don't think you're going to move him anywhere. But then if it comes down to the 5th spot, if we don't trade Monty, who would you see or who would you prefer, kind of like getting that 5th man rotation?
I guess I would prefer a 6-man rotation, but I guess if Monty is who he was in other years, I think he would be better just because he's a little more stable than Ryan can be. Because again, we saw what he was in the second half of last season. Is that who he's going to be from here on out, or is he going to struggle and the league is going to adjust to him? With Monty, he's a lefty. We have one more lefty other than him. We need another lefty, and he was the option for that. So I do think this rotation could be better with Monty just because he is a lefty and his former track record, I should say.
I like that. Brandon?
So it depends on which Monty we get. Do we get last season's Monty, or do we get the year prior when he got traded to the Rangers from the Cardinals, where he was almost unhittable? And I think for him, if you go back and look at a lot of his starts, his command was just not good at all. Like he is not a high velocity guy. He lives in the bottom of the zone. So if he can not hang his sinkers, not hang his circle changeup, if he can command those two pitches, I'm probably going to say Montgomery for his career is just there's more of it, so they kind of know what he is. And he's just like Nelson finally put it together. It took him, and we don't know, was it a confidence thing? He now has that confidence. So for me, it's going to come down to spring training. Who performs better in spring training? Then they have the hard decision that no matter which option they go with, a portion of the fan base is probably not going to be happy because there'll be one that's, oh, you're paying this man $20 million and you're going to have him come out of the bullpen. Or Nelson, and like he proved it last season in the second half that he's the better pitcher. So it's really going to come down to spring training. And like Gabe said, I don't hate the 6-man rotation for like the first month to 6 weeks.
Somebody's going to go down. You always have, especially Gallon and Kelly had a lot of injury issues last year. Fingers crossed, knock on every piece of wood I possibly can. I hope we don't have to deal with the same thing here. But, no matter what, team you are, there's always some kind of, starting pitcher injury, and you're always going to need extra guys. So I wouldn't mind a 6-man, especially he keeps Ryan stretched out. You don't have to worry about setting him down, maybe losing confidence and, getting like that, like, not like he has an ego, but a hit to the ego. Like, really? Like, I lost my starting job to a guy that had a 6-something ERA and got moved to the bullpen last year when I had my, 2-month stretch to end the season where I was borderline unhittable at times.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even an ego thing. Like, it's just a normal person thing where you feel like you're doing everything right. And the people above you are telling you, yeah, I know you're doing everything right, but we're paying this person more. So bye. So
Yeah.
I think that's how we would all feel.
For me, I think
we've all had those
towards Monty. Like they're going to lean towards Monty as much as they can.
Yeah, we've all had those coworkers where we feel like we're a lot better than them, should be making more money than them, but they get the, they're slightly more higher paid, or they're the boss's son, so you can't do much about it.
Yeah, so you make a great point. And then sticking with the the topic, some of the starting rotation, instead of Monty or Nelly, this one is about Merrill Kelly from, again, another one from Taz. He asks, is Merrill Kelly still going to be good in the long term? He is getting old. And it's definitely one of those where obviously he's been, that's why his nickname is the mainstay. He's been super consistent. He's been one of the guys where he's, I would say, one of the more underrated pitchers in baseball, especially after his 2023 season. Like 2022, 2023, he was really solid. Didn't really get talked about in the national media, not like really any Diamondback does, unless you were Corbin Carroll, Zach Gallen, or Ketel Marte, really. So I think he was one of the little more underrated, but with his injury issues and then even some of his games last year where he does, doesn't seem like he can ever get a Dodger out. He always gets owned by them. Do you think that he's still going to be, decent in the long term? I know he's still here for one more year. But if they do decide to try to, bring him back post 2025, especially with the likelihood that we're losing Gallen, do you think that he can still stay consistent?
I think it's all going to come down to what he does this year. And I know it's a bit of a cop-out answer, but we saw what he was last year. And last year he had a lot of injuries. Same with Gallen. we've had a lot of guys with injuries, so we don't know who they are and what they are right now. And Merrill is getting older, but he's not a guy who relies on velocity. So I can see him be a Greg Maddux type of guy. Greg Maddux had a longer career than Smoltz and what's the other guy's name that they had?
Glavin.
Yeah, Tom Glavine. Like they threw harder than him, but Maddox was just a wizard, and he was just able to move the ball. And I've always felt when I've seen Merrill on one in those games where he's throwing 7 innings or 8 innings, striking guys out left and right, he reminds me so much of Greg Maddox. So I do think he should be fine at least for a while. Like I said, he doesn't rely on velocity. He's like Greinke as well. They don't rely on velocity, so he could have a long career post the D-backs or even with the D-backs if they extend him. The issue is just going to be, can he be healthy? Because those cramping issues and everything else, if he's only able to throw 100 innings per year, then it's not going to be worth it for the team to keep him on.
I fully agree. Brandon?
Yeah. For me, there's a reason why he's called the mainstay. He has been our most consistent pitcher for the last few years. I think a lot of people forget he was gone for like 4 months last year. Like he pitched to start the season, then he got hurt in late April. Then he didn't come back till like August 15th. And his first couple starts were not that great coming back. Yeah, he was out for 4 months. But then his last 3 or 4 were really good. So for me, I echo a lot of what Gabe said. If he can still have his command and his control, he'll be fine. Because he always finds a way to go at least 5 innings. He had 1 game last year out of 13 starts where he didn't go at least 5. And he went 4 innings. And that was a game we were winning 14-4. The game we won 14-4. So he's just so consistent with how long he goes. You always know you're probably gonna get 5 innings out of Merrill, which depending on what the bullpen has been the last couple of games before, that might just be enough to save the bullpen until your next off day. So I think Merrill he's one of my favorite pitchers to watch because it's the art of pitching with him is so great. One of my favorite things about watching starting pitchers is their pitch sequencing, pitch tunneling. There are some guys that are so good at it that literally they could throw 2 pitches the exact same location. You could throw a 4-seamer and then the next pitch throw your changeup. It looks identical because of tunneling. It's so it's one of my favorite. It truly is an art.
It really is, and I'm on the same boat as you. Especially I know they're vastly different pitchers, but a guy like Paul Skeens, love watching, the sequencing and all that, and he's just a rookie. So, but I do think you guys would make a good point. Merrill is just, he can stay healthy and he can make sure his location is good. I think he can still have a few more solid years under his belt. Hopefully as a D-back, hopefully he doesn't get pried away from us. Hopefully some other team doesn't try to not overpay because he deserves money. I like when guys that we get their bag, but I definitely want him to stay here as a D-back, and I think he has at least a few more good years in him. But the final question we had here from our live chat, I know there's one from Taz asking if Paul was still on the team. Thankfully, no. Paul Sewell is not a Diamondback anymore. He's a free agent. But the last question we have from Taz here, again, still kind of sticking on this starting rotation, was wasn't both Gallen and Kelly dealing with cramping? Which the answer is yes. I think Gallen had a little more straining of the hamstring. I think he had a few cramping here and there, but Kelly's issue was definitely cramping in his calf. And then the second part of it was, does that have to do with anything with Chase Field's issues?
I don't think so, mostly because they both came on weird occasions. I believe Kelly's might have come in Colorado, and he just never got better from that. And Gallen's with the hamstring issues, from what I remember, it was that game against the Tigers with Flaherty. Is that who it was?
I thought it was against the Mariners when he had his injury.
It was.
Yeah, no. So here's the that was the game before. So he talked about that he kept putting dirt back into the mound because Flaherty just kept digging a hole, and after in the post game, Gallen said, I felt like I was cramping up with that hole, so that's why he started to fill it in. He said he felt like it was an injury thing for him, and then after that is when he started to have the cramping issues. So it could have hurt him more than he thought, and it makes sense. I mean, I've had issues with my hamstrings too, and sometimes all it takes is just, something like that where you're just like, you just take a weird little hop, and I believe one of those things too was a comebacker on him, and he just kind of wasn't right after that. So it's just, I think they're kind of freak accidents. If the cramping issues were related to Chase Field, everybody would have these issues, not just these guys. And Merrill, I don't know, he has to get something checked out. I know he keeps saying, "Oh, I drink a whole bunch of water and electrolytes." I'm like, maybe got to get something else checked out, some kidney issues or something.
I think it's also the Chase Field, because some of those starts, it was humid in there. So I don't know. I think it's kind of a mixture of both. Like, because he says he drinks so much water on start days, so maybe it's a mixture of both.
Yes, I'm hoping that whatever those issues are, maybe with a fixed roof, maybe they'll secretly fix the AC, so we don't have to worry about that. But I'm hoping that those are injury concerns that we have in the past. But again, appreciate all you guys with the questions in the chat. If you are again listening to this after the fact and not in the YouTube live chat, join us in the Discord. We do have a channel there just for questions. So again, if you guys have anything in there that we can't address to you right now, shoot us a message in there. We'll try to reply in there, or even again, just add us on Twitter. We'll try to respond to any questions there, because we love to interact with you guys and kind of have you guys pick our brains, we pick your brains and all that. But two comments I did want to bring up here really quick, not necessarily questions, but one from Corbin Barrels is 60 days until spring training. So like to Gabe's point, is it's a long off season until it isn't, and next thing you know, we're going to be 30 days away. Next thing you know, we're going to be a week away. Like we're going to be
and
really
it's
fast.
It's 50 days until pitchers and catchers report as well.
So it's even less than 2 months. So we're going to be quickly, coming up on the season, and hopefully, like I said earlier, after the holidays, hopefully we'll get a little bit more news that we can do some emergency pods on, because the rest of us have basically every day off, or are not going back into work until Thursday. So if we can get some news in the next few days, then don't you guys worry, we will be here for you. But then the second one from Corbin Barrels, bringing up, we got to get you guys credentials if you don't already have them. So you can go to spring training games and get some interviews. We're definitely going to be trying to push for more of that this year, and try to kind of get you guys some more of that, like behind the scenes content, some interviews and all that, especially since our lovely Jesse was let go, and he's not going to be able to provide a lot of that for us anymore. But we will, again, hopefully, keep pushing. We will give you guys some updates whenever and if ever we do get the credentials. But to kind of again, wrap up the show here before we get out of here, I wanted to see if there's any final thoughts from you gentlemen on everything. Obviously, the Josh Naylor trade, expectations for him, like what are your thoughts and hopes, and maybe even predictions for what kind of season he'll have? Maybe even any final thanks for Slade, because it's probably the last time we're going to even mention Slade Sacconi's name, if we're being honest. And then even just any final thoughts on maybe some of the questions in the live chat that we discussed throughout the evening.
I'm just hoping the trade works out for everybody. Like I said, I do like Slade. I don't think he has a lot of potential, so hopefully it works out. I do hope we get a Naylor who hits 250 and 40 bombs, so I think that would help, alleviate the loss of Walker and Goldie-ish. So, yeah, Hazen still has a lot of work to do. We still have quite a few guys that we need to pick up. I would hope we don't lose certain guys, certain fan favorite guys, but at this point, we can't just keep hoarding prospects either.
Yeah, honestly, good point. Brandon?
I would love a Christmas present from Mike Hazen in the form of Ryan Helsey or Jock Peterson. That would be that, or a Happy New Year, guys. If you want to do, to be honest, either one of those, both would be just absolutely perfect. Again, I'm not going to be disappointed if neither one of them happen because of these reports. Like, going back and forth, like Cardinals say that they're not shopping him, but they've been linked to trades too. So I'm not quite sure what exactly is going on there with Ryan Helsey. So I would love him on this team because between him, AJ Puck, and Justin Martinez, that back end of the bullpen is just straight heat, because all three of them throw triple digits.
That would be insane. That would be, and again, I know there's been concern. We always have some times where maybe a hard throwing righty or whatever comes to the D-backs, but it is going to be. It's been something that I thought about ever since the offseason ended, and I would love Ryan Helsley. But to answer your question here, Taz, we do actually do not post game for every game, unless if there's like a crazy game, like crazy comeback, or just like something crazy happens. We'll probably do like emergency pause. We'll probably do like an unexpected live for that. But we usually do, especially because again we're not getting paid for this. So we all do this for fun. We usually do like post game or like post series recaps to where like again if they play Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Wednesday night, maybe Thursday, depending on our schedules, we'll usually go live and all that. But again, make sure you guys follow us on Twitter, join the Discord, and hit that notification bell on YouTube because you will get a little pop-up notification anytime we're going live. So you will at least get the heads up on that. But again, appreciate every single one of you guys for hopping in the chat here. We seriously from the bottom of all our hearts really appreciate your guys taking time out of your, especially Sunday. I know the weekends there's a lot to do, especially at the end of the week, laundry, housework, dinner, and all that. Sunday night football. So appreciate each and every single one of you for stopping in. Again, if you're listening to this even afterwards, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. It does help a lot. And follow us on Twitter, join the Discord, check out azsnakepit.com, and we will see you guys on the next episode of Dbacks Dispatch.
It's the Dbacks Dispatch. Yeah, bring Red Gate, Josh on the floor. West Coast vibes, catch us on the air. Home run dogs, diamond gems we share. Brandon was a dad, Caesar man was a plan. Red races down, Chelsea like it is, man. Gabs on fire, brings the heat every time. Josh on the mix, keep the beat so prime. I got the insight, 7 weeks ahead. Tune in, Dbacks Dispatch, this is it. Now we rolling. Dbacks Dispatch, yeah. Talk to Brandon, Gay, this is Big Catch. Josh on the mix, he make the beats. West Coast vibe, got the G fucking the bad. The home Mac, the home Mac, the home Mac, home Mac. Dbacks Dispatch, we here to stay. Yeah, catch us every week, we bring the flavor to it. We got the home Mac, the home Mac, the home Mac, home Mac. Dbacks Dispatch, we here to stay. Catch us every week, we bring the flavor to it.